Welcome to Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement. Gerry Ricken and Heidi Ricken Provost want to help you retire with purpose and live with joy. Find more information, including how to reach the team, in today's show notes. Now, Kickin' with the Rickens, powered by Ricken Financial.
Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening to Kickin' with the Rickens podcast. We are here with retirement planner Heidi Ricken Provost and licensed insurance professional Gerry Ricken. My name is Mark Owens. We invite you to get more at rickenfinancial.com. You can get all the information here in the show notes. Thanks again for subscribing. Now, let's get to the show. Great information this weekend. We're going to talk about retirement by the numbers, the milestone birthdays. Heidi, where do we start?
Well, we're going to start at age 50. 50. You hit the big 50. What do you get to do? Well, maybe you haven't saved enough for retirement, or maybe you have saved enough, but you just want to add to it. You can do what we call catch-up contributions once you hit that beautiful age of 50 years old. By the way, if you want to know what a catch-up contribution is, how much you can add to your IRAs, to your 401ks, to your HSAs, all that kind of stuff.
We're not talking about condiments out there. We're talking about catch, C-A-T-C-H up.
And if you want that data, please reach out to us at 314-207-6211. And we'd be happy to have a conversation with you so that you don't mess up these catch-up contributions. You want to make sure that you're catching up in the right way so that it's going to be more tax advantage to you and your family moving forward. But every single person is going to have a different answer for how these catch-up contributions are going to affect you. So let's have that chat. Then you're going to make it to the beautiful ripe age of 59 and a half.
And here's what happens at 59 and a half. At 59 and a half, you can actually access your retirement funds, those 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, 457s, whatever you haven't paid tax on yet, without penalty. If you take money out of one of those accounts before 59 and a half, you'll have a 10% excise tax on your money, in addition to the ordinary income tax you're going to be paying on those funds. So it's very, very important to think about that number and think about that age so that you don't have to pay the IRS any more than you have to. We never like to see people get penalized in the tax code, so let's pay attention to that. The other thing that you can do at age 59 and a half, if your company plan provides for it, is you can take what is called an in-service withdrawal. An in-service withdrawal simply means rolling that money out of your 401k, your 403b, into an IRA that you can control, and maybe you have more options with respect to investment options, because in those company plans and those company sponsored plans, you have a limited number of mutual funds you can invest in. You can pull that out and invest in almost anything that is imaginable in an IRA that you control.
So the other thing that happens at age 59 and a half is, Gerry mentioned you'd get a 10% tax penalty if you take funds out of your traditional IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs. If you have Roth and you want to take some money out of that, as long as it's been there for 5 years and you're over the age of 59 and a half, then the growth won't become taxable, but the growth could be taxable before that. So 59 and a half is a very important age, not just because you're almost 60, but because you get to access a little bit more of your funds. Then you're going to hit age 62. And 62 is the earliest possible age that you could draw your own Social Security retirement benefits. So some people will come in and they'll meet with us and they'll say, we have no idea when to take Social Security. There are so many different ways you can draw your Social Security retirement. But I'll tell you this, Heidi, I have paid so much money into the Social Security Administration in my working years. I'm going to get the most out, so I'm going to take it at 62. Guess what, guys? If you take those benefits starting at age 62, they're reduced so much on a monthly basis, you may not get the most out of the system. Mm-hmm. So we'd love to run a report for you to show you, where your break-even analysis really is. And hey, none of us have a crystal ball. None of us know how long we're going to live. But does it make sense to take it early or at one of the other ages we'll be mentioning in just a bit? Who knows? We'd love to have that conversation. And if you're confused as to when you should be taking Social Security, if 62 is the right age, how that all is going to work, please give us a call at 314-207-6211 or head over to rickenfinancial.com, RICKEN financial.com, and say, hey, let's chat Social Security, because We don't want you to make the wrong decision for you and your family. The other thing that's going to happen at age 62, if you do take those early Social Security benefits, if you're still working, you might have to pay tax on them. So, you may have to pay back the Social Security Administration based upon how much money you're making too. We don't want that to happen to you. But you're going to make it past age 62, and what's going to kick in next, Gerry?
The most famous retirement age, 65 happens. And what happens at 65? Well, at 65, all of us become Medicare eligible. That's the only qualification to qualify for Medicare is turning age 65. So when you turn age 65, you qualify for Medicare. What is Medicare? Medicare is simply replacing your health insurance. You pay premiums, and you get a supplement or an advantage plan to supplement that. So you have health care coverage throughout retirement. When you do that, we want you to just focus on something that says, okay, why do we do that at 65? And do you retire at 65? You can retire, you can not retire at 65. You can continue working past 65 and continue healthcare benefits and not turn on Medicare. A lot of people are confused that you have to turn it on at 65. If you're working past that, you continue your health insurance through your employer. You don't have to. But the other thing you can do is turn it on at, you can actually retire at 63 and a half because there's something called COBRA. COBRA is a law that allows you to continue your health care benefits from your employer for an 18-month period. 63 and a half plus 18 months is 65. You can continue with COBRA and continue your same benefits, healthcare benefits you've had during these working years to age 65, then cut over to Medicare. And it can be a really, really exceptional plan for you if you can afford to do it.
Yeah. So you're retiring at age 63 and a half to carry on that health insurance from work with you, or age 65 when Medicare kicks in. As long as you have your health insurance covered, all is well. And then you're going to hit this ripe age of 67 years old. And all these people think, okay, I hit 67. I'm at my full retirement age, based upon what year you're born, can be anywhere from age 66, add 2 months to it each year. Age 67. We're going to keep it simple today and just mention age 67, but we do understand some of you listening might have a different full retirement age. It might be 66 and 8 months. It might be 66 and 10 months, whatever. 67 is your full retirement age. And there's a common misconception where a lot of people think that means you get the absolute most out of the Social Security Administration if you turn on your benefit at full retirement age. Well, yes, technically in the code, that's your full retirement benefit, but it continues to grow past your full retirement age. Here's the kicker at age 67. If you want to take Social Security and you want to work and draw income too, once you hit your full retirement age, you are free to move about the country and make as much money as you want. And you can double dip at age 67. Does that make sense for your financial plan? It may not. Who really knows? If you want some help on that, please give us a buzz at 314-207-6211. But full retirement age is basically, in our eyes, the number that you can double dip. You can take your Social Security and you can keep working. But to get the largest Social Security benefit, how old do you got to be, Gerry?
You have to wait until age 70. And 70 is the new 40 in my mind. So for all those out there listening, waiting till age 70, you receive the largest benefit. And when I say the largest benefit, because that is when the benefits stop, unless you continue working and you're replacing, there's some nuances out there. But at age 70, you get the highest benefit. So, and it may make sense for the highest wage earner in a relationship to wait till age 70. But it may not. We run those numbers for you. So just reach out to us at 314-207-6211, and we'll just see if we can help determine what your break even is as a family, because we want you to make sure you're doing the right thing for your family.
Oh, yeah. We've already mentioned a couple ages right now that pertain to Social Security alone. So if you sit here and you're like 62, 67, 70, all these ages and months and everything in between, when do you even take Social Security? When does it make sense? When do you break even? When do you do all this? You can't go to the Social Security Administration and get advice, but you can come to us to get a little bit of advice, and we'd love to help. We're beyond age 70. Life is great. You're retired. Things are looking fantastic. And then the IRS dictates when you have to start taking money out of your traditional funds to pay tax on it. And that's going to start at age 73. in the form of a required minimum distribution if you are born in the years 1951 to 1959. So if you're born from 1951 to 1959 or in any of those years, when you hit age 73, the IRS dictates how much money you have to take out of your traditional funds and pay tax on it. And it starts a little shy of 4%, but that's called a required minimum distribution in RMD. Gerry's going to talk about that a little later today, too, if you want to tune in. And what happens if you're born in 1960 or after?
Well, if you're born in 1960, you don't have to take those required minimum distributions out until you reach age 75. So you get 2 more years if you were born in 1960 beyond. And what that provides us is an opportunity to do a little bit more tax planning for you. So if you'd like to know what that tax planning really looks like, reach out to us at 314-207-6211 or at rickenfinancial.com. We're open 24 hours a day at rickenfinancial.com.
Everybody moves a little bit differently, be it physically, mentally, or financially. We're all a little bit different.
That we are. I'm a little bit different in that I said yes to a challenge in the month of November that I didn't think I would ever say yes to. But every single day in the month of November, I'm completing a 5K. Now, that doesn't mean I'm running a 5K because so many people are like, you're doing what?
Right.
You just have to move a 5K a day. And in doing so, I'm in a challenge with a bunch of different people. I found myself kind of worried about how long it was taking me to do it every day and that I'm at a different pace than someone else. But then I started thinking about it. Everything we do in our lives, we move at different paces.
Yeah.
And retirement's no different. Just because you retire on Monday or January 1st or whenever you're going to retire, that doesn't, and someone else does the same day, that doesn't mean you're going to move through retirement at the same pace as them. You know, everything is going to be a little bit different. Where our spend is different, our income's different. Yeah.
And the way we move is different. I want to go back to what you said there for a second about a 5K a day, 3.1 miles. Does that mean you have to do it all at once, or at least from the moment you get up until you go to bed, you've got to get that 3.1 miles in? How does that work?
I took it as moving a 5K all at once each day, plus whatever my body moves throughout the day. The day one that I did it, I did 3.11 miles because, you know, as I'm walking back to my house, I was like, oh, I hit 3.11. Day 2, I accidentally hit 3.12.
Okay.
Day 3, I accidentally, literally not even planning it, hit 3.13. So I just decided I'm going to keep the trend going. So
aren't you accruing extra? Can't you roll that over into the next day? In my mind, I'd be like, dude, I did 3.5 yesterday. I'm going to take 4/10 of that and combine it into tomorrow's walk.
Oh, no. If you put a challenge in front of Heidi, Ricken, Provost, she will demolish that challenge.
Right.
Yeah, I'm most competitive against myself. I'm not taking any shortcuts here. And actually, I also in the month of November decided to add 1 extra day a week with my trainer. So
I'm not mad.
If you
I'm
think
impressed.
about it, November, you know, Halloween hits, and then November 1st is when the Christmas season begins for people like you, Mark, where you're already celebrating Christmas.
100%.
But for those of us that actually celebrate Thanksgiving as well, you know, we have a whole holiday season. And this is the point in time we need to focus a little bit more on our health. And if we're not, then things can go to hell in a handbasket real quick.
Yeah.
Much like if you're sitting here and you're 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years away from retirement, you need to focus on retirement. It's going to happen. But if you put no focus into it and you put no planning into it, you could find yourself hurting. So let's talk about it. What's one of the biggest differences in your working years versus retirement? A big topic in the news right now is the government shutdown. Some people are working without pay right now and or are laid off. You know, I also have friends that work for Boeing, and there's been a huge strike going on in St. Louis for a long time. And there are quite a few people who have no pay coming in right now. When you're in your working years, you need to have emergency funds for those what ifs. And there's all these rules of thought for how much that's going to be. And you hear all these talking heads say stuff, but you know, on average, we find everyone's going to have a different comfort level, but we find most people want 5 to 6 months of how much money they spend saved in an emergency fund for those what ifs. So it's just kind of hanging out, saving in that emergency fund for them. And when you're working, those emergency funds need to be liquid and safe, because you need to ensure that if the emergency happens, that ICE money, that in case of emergency is what the ICE means in this
in this scenario, in this
arena.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
In case of emergency, those funds will kick in. So that's what we're talking about when it comes to the working years and your emergency funds. Then you're on the precipice of retirement, and you think about, okay, all of a sudden you go from on a bi-monthly basis, every 2 weeks, maybe twice a month, once a week, once a month, you're getting paid from your employer and money's coming in, and you're saving and you're scrimping and you're ready to retire. Then all of a sudden you retire and you have to figure out where your income's coming from, how you're going to pay for things. And, we've all heard this 4% rule. Oh, you save, however much money you're going to save for retirement. And I'm a talking head in this voice, by the way. You're save as much as you're going to save in retirement. And then when you go to retire, everything's going to be in the stock market, and it'll make enough money that you can spend 4% for the rest of your life, and everything's going to be gravy and your money will never run out. So that's not going to happen, because think about it. If you retired in 1999 and you had a bunch of money saved and it was all in the stock market and you were only spending 4% a year, what happened in 2000, 2001? Your 401k probably got cut about in half, may become a 201k. Then if you need to spend 8% of that, the math just doesn't math. At the end of the day, here's the thing. If we had a crystal ball and we could figure out exactly how much money we'd be making on all of our money every single year, year after year, maybe that's the case and that's how much money you could be spending. But none of us have a crystal ball. So when you're in your retirement years, you have to preserve things in a bit of a different way. When you're in your working years, you're going to ensure that you have funds in case of an emergency in the form of your emergency funds. Then you get to your retirement years, you need to preserve some money to ensure that things can last the test of time. I'm not saying that the market's going to correct tomorrow, because I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea when the market's going to correct. But what goes up must come down at some point in time. And if you retire January 1st and January 2nd, the market corrects and 100% of your eggs are in the market basket, you worked way too hard to lose 10, 20, 30% of how much money you've saved for your retirement. And I don't want the market to be in control of whether you have a successful retirement or not. So here's the way you think about preservation when it comes to retirement. You don't need that same kind of emergency funds that you did during your working years, because hopefully you have money saved. And if need be, you can pull some of the funds, when those emergencies arise. But you need to preserve some of your assets so that maybe you have 5 to 7 years of the income you'd spend that can't be lost if the market corrects. There's some other investment vehicles that need to come into your portfolio when you're in your working year or in your retirement years versus your working years. Because if you lose 20%, 30%, we don't want you to lose your income, your purchasing power. Because if that happens at the beginning of your retirement, that's typically the years we're spending the most amount of money on the fun stuff. And you worked way too hard to not be able to take the trip,
right,
or spend the time with your grandkids, do the things that you want to do that you saved and you scrimped and you worked so hard for. So in your working years, we have 5 to 6 months, maybe a little bit more than that. Some people have 5 years set aside in their emergency funds. We all have a different comfort level. I'm not here to determine what your comfort level is. That's where you come in, where you're comfortable. But we want to ensure that you have your emergency funds there. When it comes to your retirement years, the comfort's a little bit different. We want to ensure that you have enough income to last the test of time. So when it comes to your retirement, you might need, 5 to 6 years of your income on the sidelines from market risk. Because why 5 to 7 years, Mark? When we do have a correction, on average, it takes 5 to 7 years for the market to recover. If it's going to take that long for things to recover, we want to ensure that you still have income to cover your needs and your wants, because at any point in time in retirement, you should be able to cover all the wants, the goals, the dreams, the wishes that you saved for in your retirement years.
Mm-hmm.
If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you do, and you want to dive into this, and you're like, okay, but how many years do I really need on the sidelines? How much money does that amount to? What does my income look like? I'd love to go through this with you and ensure that you're matching your risk tolerance, because the only time that it really matters that you're matching your risk tolerance is in the event of a market correction.
Yeah.
You want to ensure that you're not going to be losing more than you'd be comfortable with. We'd love to see what your risk tolerance is and ensure that you're meeting it by giving us a call at 314-207-6211 or heading over to rickenfinancial.com, RICKEN financial.com. So we can kind of put this all together and see what it would mean for you in your retirement years.
We've been having great conversations this weekend about retirement by the numbers, some of the milestone birthdays that you need to be aware of and what you need to do regarding your financial future. And earlier, Gerry, you mentioned, that three little letters, RMD, required minimum distributions, the age you need to take them, and what exactly it means and how it could affect your retirement income. Let's break it down, Gerry. What do we need to know?
Well, here's what you need to know. RMD stands for, as Mark said, required minimum distribution. That is the amount of money that the IRS requires you to withdraw from your 401k, your 403b, your 457, your IRA at certain ages. If you do not take those amounts out on an annual basis, you're subject to a 25% tax penalty. So we don't ever want to have our clients pay a tax penalty. We don't want anyone to pay a tax penalty. So that's why we're all about education, educating people about what the rules are, so we don't break those rules.
Right.
Because breaking those rules can hurt you financially pretty bad. You didn't take your money, but you owe tax on the money you didn't take. So figure that one out. But the required minimum distribution ages that are key right now, after the Secure Act 2.0 went into effect a few years ago. Secure, that's just the name of the tax law change that we're now under. But the rules now state that if you were born in 1951 through 1959, you must take a required minimum distribution starting at age 73. And for those born 1960 and after, the age is 75. And you must take those in the year in which you turned 73 or 75 to avoid that penalty that we just spoke of. But when you look at required minimum distributions, a lot of people say, well, what if I don't need that money or want that money? Doesn't matter. You have to take that money. The IRS has allowed us to save our taxes and defer our taxes for years and years and years and years and years. Now, at these ages, it's time to pay the piper. They want to make sure that you withdraw the money so that they start getting revenue into the federal government. And Lord knows we need revenue in the federal government to pay for everything we're spending money on. But there are some, we'll talk about what we can do about these RMDs a little bit later, but let's just talk about how they work. When you have more than one account, and most people do have more than one retirement account, more than one IRA, more than one 401k. And when you look at that, what you have to do is aggregate those in the total and calculate your required minimum distribution on the amount of total assets that you haven't paid tax on. So if you have 4 accounts, you add all 4 accounts together, you determine what the percentage of money is you need to take out. Let's talk about that percentage for a second. If you're 73, let's say you have to start taking required minimum distributions at age 73. It's a little less than 4%. If you're 75, it's a little more than 4%. So let's just use 4% as an example. And let's assume that you're a couple that are age 60. And between the two of you, you've scrimped and saved, and you've been very successful in your 401k, your IRA. You've got the company match going, and all of a sudden, you're at age 60, and you're at $1.5 million in these deferred accounts. And that's, we see that a lot. $1.5 million total for the two of you. Then let's assume that you're age 60 and you're continuing to work and you're continuing to contribute to this, and you're growing that asset. Well, when you're growing that asset, assets will double every 7 years at 10%.
Okay.
It's just, that's just the rule. That's the way the math works. And Heidi talked about mathing math. Math.
That's right.
So at age 67, that $1.5 million becomes $3 million. Another 7 years at age 74, it becomes $6 million. All of a sudden, you're looking at a ticking tax bomb because you have $6 million and you're on the precipice of having to take those required minimum distributions at 4%. Well, guess what? 4% of $6 million is $240,000. You're going to have to put on your 1040 as ordinary income at age 75. Well, wow.
Yeah.
That's probably more than you're making at age 60. That's more than your taxable income today. Then you add Social Security, and still 85% of your benefits can be taxable. So 15% of your Social Security is not taxable under current law. So you add that to it. Then all of a sudden, you're looking at a huge tax bill that you have to pay in your retirement years. Now, let's assume you took that 4% out of your $6 million, but that $6 million grew by more than 4%. What happens the next year? The percentage you have to take as a required minimum distribution increases as your account is increasing. So it perpetuates itself, and you're going to be faced with more than $240,000 the next year, and maybe $280,000 the next year. That continues and continues and continues. And at age 85, that 4% becomes 6.25%. So it's all based on the IRS guidelines, and the IRS says how long you're going to live. It's a life expectancy table that the IRS dictates you on how you're going to spend your money and how you have to pay the tax on your money. And I don't know about you, but I would rather be in charge of how I pay the tax as opposed to have the IRS tell me how I'm going to pay my taxes.
Right.
So we have a lot of planning opportunities where we can look at what is in your deferred accounts and what can we do to maybe do some Roth conversions if they make sense. If it makes sense to have your taxes paid now at a lower rate than when you're 75, 85, 90, why not take a look at that and see if the math does make sense. If you'd like to take a look at that, please reach out to us at 314-207-6211 or hit us up at rickenfinancial.com. We're available 24 hours a day. Now, let's talk about when you take the money out of your account, which accounts do you take it out of? Well, as I said earlier, you have to aggregate all those accounts together and take your 4% out in total. If you have an account that's paying 5% versus one that's paying 12% versus one that's knocking it out of the park at 22%, which one do you pay it out of? Well, you really don't want to take the saddle off your horse when you're winning the race. So why not take it out of the one that's not performing and let the other ones perform? So take all of your required minimum distribution out of the lesser paying account.
Okay.
So there are ways that you need to just think about what you're doing and make sure that you understand the laws and understand the rules so that you work in the way that is in the best interest of you and your spouse or your family. If you're married, you're single, we just want to make sure you understand it.
And one more time, Gerry, Ricken, what age do we need to get serious, start thinking about our RMDs?
You need to get serious about thinking about your RMDs today.
Oh.
Because you have an opportunity to plan, to do those Roth conversions, to prevent that ticking time bomb, that freight train coming at you in the way of the IRS. The IRS is blowing the whistle on that train coming right at you. We don't want that to happen. So let's start today. Let's start planning today so that you don't have these problems tomorrow.
So we make sure that the maths when it comes to your RMDs.
Absolutely.
Great conversation this weekend about retirement by the numbers, talking RMDs. But Heidi, Ricken, Provost, this time of the year, we get into holiday mode. We're thinking about Thanksgiving. We're thinking about Christmas. But for a lot of people, we get lazy with our financial strategies. There are things that we need to do before the end of the year.
Yes, there are. And one thing you need to spend some time and focus on is if you are in that RMD age. So, say you're 73 years old right now and you need to be taking some money out of your required minimum, out of your traditional funds in the form of a required minimum distribution, you have a deadline. That deadline is December 31st each year. So you have to take it before December 31st. And guess what happens? So many of these companies are so logged with RMD requests by the end of the year that if you're not putting in your request by mid-December, you may not be able to get access to your funds. And we don't want you to have to pay a tax penalty because you didn't think of things far enough in advance. So just know that there is a deadline on some of the stuff that we get to do each year. And that deadline can either be December 31st or April 15th. For an RMD, it's December 31st. So you have till the end of the year. You got to take that required minimum distribution and pay some tax on it. There are a bunch of other things that, have a deadline for the end of the year too, so that you can take advantage of some forward tax planning.
Forward tax planning is the most important thing that we believe that we bring to the table for people. So if you'd like to learn more about our tax plans and actually experience one of those tax plans, reach out to us at 314-207-6211. We'll get started with that. But one of the things that we have to do is really think about what our tax is going to be on your RMDs in the future, those required minimum distributions when you have to take those in the future. Let's say you're younger than 73, you're not taking them right now.
What if you're over the age of 59 and a half, which we talked about earlier today? What can you do then?
If you're over 59 and a half, what you can do is you can actually roll your IRA, your 401k into a Roth and have the tax paid for it by the account itself. And that's a really, really unique and interesting strategy, because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, when I do a Roth conversion, I need to come out of pocket and pay the tax. That's true if you're before 59 and a half. But when you reach that magic age of 59 and a half, one of the things you can do is perform a Roth conversion, which simply means taking money out of your 401k or your IRA, traditional IRA, paying tax on it and putting it in Roth form, in a Roth IRA. Why would you do that? To prevent the taxation, the huge taxation in the future of those required minimum distributions that Heidi just spoke of.
So something else that you can take advantage of in, the year 2025 before the year ends is what we call a QCD. So say you do have to take those required minimum distributions right now, and that money is coming into you. Well, if you don't want to pay tax on 100% of it and you're giving some money away to charity, what you can do is direct those RMD funds, the required minimum distributions that are coming out of your traditional IRA 401k accounts. If you give that money away to charity and you do so before December 31st, and it has to be a real church or charity that's a 501c3, it can't be a human being named charity you're just handing this money to. But if you give that money away to charity, you actually don't have to spend the tax on it. You get to take a tax break from that while still satisfying your required minimum distribution. If you want some help to see if the funds that you've given to charity throughout this year count as a QCD, where you don't have to pay tax on the amount, but you satisfy the need for taking your RMD, please give us a call at 314-207-6211. Let's dive into what you've done so far this year and ensure that the money that you're giving to charity, you get the tax benefit for it in the end.
The other thing I want to talk about is the required minimum distribution laws state that you have to take an amount out of your deferred funds, your 401ks, your IRAs, by year end. It doesn't say that you have to take out that percentage out of each account. You just have to take that amount out of the aggregate total of all of those funds. So it's very important to figure out which funds you're going to use to take those required minimum distributions out of, because why disadvantage yourself? If you have assets that are outperforming other assets, use the accounts that are underperforming, or at least explore that and see what the tax ramifications are and what the investment ramifications are by taking out one fund versus another fund. We can help you do those calculations. Just reach out to us at 314-207-6211, and we'll get started with that analysis for you.
As Gerry's talking, I come to think about this. There is no one size fits all distribution strategy, withdrawal strategy, RMD strategy, QCD strategy. There's no strategy that's one size fits all and fits every single person who's around here. Our tax return and our tax situation is like a fingerprint. Every single person has a different tax situation. we're sitting here, we're focusing on the year end. There might be some stuff you're not thinking of, we're not thinking of to share directly in this moment right now, because it's not blanket advice. It's something that's very specific to you. We want to ensure that what you and your family are doing by year end and to kick off the year strong is in your best interest tax-wise for the rest of your financial lives. And, we build out all of these tax strategies individually with every single human being that comes to meet with us. Sometimes you're in a couple and you might not have the same ideals. You might not even share finances. That's okay. We want to build this out so that it makes the most amount of sense for you, your spouse, your family, your financial situation, not just today, through age 100. If you live beyond that, hopefully we have, some new blood coming in at some point in time that can help you out then too. But, we want to ensure that each step of the way, you're meeting your needs, because your needs are going to be different from everyone down the street. You might be sitting here and having a conversation with your friend and they say, oh, I do this with my RMD and I do that and I do this and you need to do this. You know what? That blanket advice, if that friend of yours is not sitting here looking at all of your needs and taking a purposeful approach to planning proactively for your future, they're doing you a disservice. Don't listen to the talking heads.
Yeah.
You need a custom plan that takes into account the income coming into you, your investments and your risk tolerance, ensuring that your legacy needs are met and that your legacy is going to avoid probate, coming up with a plan for your health care, for life insurance. There are so many different facets of your financial plan that you can implement each step of the way, and that will impact you for your future. We want to ensure that you have a plan that does stand the test of time. So please give us a call so we can take the purpose approach with your retirement and ensure that what you're doing is matching your needs, your risks, your wants, your desires, and your goals for your financial future in the most tax efficient manner. If that sounds like something you'd love to explore, we'd love to chat at 314-207-6211.
We would also like to just let you know one thing. We've seen hundreds of different situations. We've seen so many different people retire, and all that knowledge we have, we'd love to share with you, because we don't want you to make the same mistakes that other people have made in the past.
Gerry, Heidi, as always, thank you for the information and the education this weekend. But before we get out of here, take us home.
Every day is a holiday.
Life is short. Laugh hard.
This has been Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Ricken Financial LLC. Ricken Financial LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Ricken Financial LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Ricken Financial LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Ricken Financial LLC.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Tax preparation and tax advisory services are offered through Ricken Financial. These services are not offered by IPW and are not subject to investment advisor requirements. These services referenced are an outside business activity not offered through or supervised by IPW.